after her release, although some people would have probably liked that. Sure, I would like Ana to get buffed quicker, but I am glad that they're going to give her small changes and watching them take shape. Similarly, with the Reaper buffs, slow and steady is the way to go. I just wanted to give Blizzard credit for changing their balance strategy to something more reasonable and sustainable.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the One Trick Hero podcast. My name is Paxfos, and with me today, as always, is Voxia. And Fish is again not with us. Once again, it'll probably be about another month until he's settled down.
Is it really a month?
Yeah, he's got another month of training left for sure.
Damn, what do they have to train him to do?
I don't know, man.
Pretty sure he's just better by default.
Well, no, he said he's already done. Like, he's not really much to train left, but the period has to be. Within,
it's like
yeah.
I got it.
Yeah,
it's a mandated period
kind of thing. Yeah. This is our second time recording this because wait, say something.
Something.
Okay, good. No,
Am
we're good. This is our second time going through it because I had the wrong audio source.
We just recorded an 8-hour podcast, and now we're just gonna have to do it again.
Yeah, we just finished recording a hefty 8 hours. We're gonna repeat every single word.
We should just record podcasts before the week we report on and see how close we can get to predicting the outcome.
Ooh, that's a neat idea.
Just be wrong about everything. That should be so funny.
I don't know. I think we'd be right on a lot of stuff. But anyways,
I would have failed this week.
Why would you have failed this week? Oh, well, yeah, this week wasn't. This week
I expected Dallas to beat London.
This week was crazy. I mean, let's see. Let me go over this. Oh, no, we're in.
I wonder if I can scratch my chin and make like my beard hairs can have friction with my finger to be loud enough to be picked up by my mic.
Wait, hold on. Can you hear this?
No, I don't think so.
Well, it might be
once.
I'm saying it's not picking up in Discord, but I think it's actually picking up on our podcast listeners. Listen to me scratching.
Do you hear anything?
Now I do, yeah.
Oh, shit, I can. It's an ASMR podcast now.
Yep. Hey, everybody, I know you came here to hear about Overwatch League, but just kidding. We're actually going to go over ASMR, different types of ASMR. I'm going to pump up my input sensitivity on this mic, and you're going to hear my guttural noises. This week was crazy because, the Dallas Fuel beating London was unexpected. That was
that's definitely an upset.
That was definitely an upset. And then the game after. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say it's like the same thing we said. The most upsetting part is that Dallas is actually looking good. I guess that's not upsetting for the fans of them, but you know, as not a fan of the organization, a fan.
Yeah.
I don't know. I couldn't phrase that properly. Anyway,
as a not
as
fan.
somebody who is not a big, very. Man, I can't talk. I don't really like the Dallas Fuel management. I like some of the players on the team.
Yeah.
I like Mickey. I like Siegel.
Yeah. Well, of course.
You know,
in effect.
I mean, I like Time in effect, but I don't know. I don't like that team.
Like them or not, Dallas Fuel has been a roller coaster. That's for sure. So it's yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously they're not going to make it to playoffs, but we'll see how they round out the end of stage 4. But the upset for me was fucking Valiant pulling ahead of New York. The series after.
Because once Nixel said that they didn't
I was
care
upset.
so much about winning every. Well, yeah, because we're not really big fans of Valiant. But once Nixel said that they're not too concerned about winning every match from now until the playoffs since they're so far ahead, I was like, yeah, it makes sense they might lose one or two just because they're like. If you paid close enough attention, they straight up just only did dive, and then they switched to a few things here and there to see what they could get away with. But they didn't play any of the meta stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
So this was like where other times where it was like it looked like maybe they were holding stuff close to their hand. This time it was straight up. They're like, we're just gonna go and play, and then if shit doesn't work, it doesn't work. But we're not gonna force anything or try too hard to get this victory out because we don't need to.
Yeah, I mean that's true. But
I mean, I hate to sound like one of those apologists, but I mean, really,
that's what you said last time they lost. So, I mean,
well, but no. Well, yeah, but I mean, it was. I still believe it was true that time because they were playing off. But this time, it's just obvious. Like, it's not that they were throwing. Like, it's not like some people on Twitch chat were like, "Oh, they're just throwing." I'm like, no, they're not going to intentionally try to lose. It's just that instead of giving 110% to try to win, like they do a lot of the time, or like especially when they do when they play Seoul. Like they love to 4-0 Seoul, and they love to beat the shit out of London.
Yeah.
But they don't care if they drop a game to the Valiant so much, so they just played like super close to their chest and were just like, make us do stuff different. And this it still was a 5-game series,
That is an explanation.
and it was still pretty close.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, that's true. That's true.
But I mean, because like you could see, like when Sabiobi was in, right? When in most of the time when they're playing, right, and it gets down to the wire, Sabiobi just fucking like really. He wasn't playing poorly, but he just didn't. He wasn't playing aggressively or doing anything that normal Sabiobi does when.
Well,
shit's on.
okay. There is a difference between New York playing them and versus New York pulling out all the cards for the show match of the end of stage 3. You know, that was
Yeah,
two
'cause
different.
They still wanted to make a statement with that with the like the money match at the end of season 3 too.
Yeah.
Here it's just like, oh no, instead of being shit, what was the record going into the weekend? Instead of being fucking hello, please load. Well, okay. I don't know why this. Okay, instead of being wait, I want the overall. Yeah, instead of being 31-3, they're now 32-4.
Oh, no.
Shit! Wow. Oh no.
Yeah.
How fucking bad is that team? So terrible.
So garbage,
Overall,
dude.
Boston's still good. I mean, they've lost a lot, but
Yeah,
they're still
dude.
22-14.
They've lost a lot. They have suffered tremendously from from their losses from basically Tracer not being super meta, or she's meta but like not. You know, they can't rely on the heavy carry from that. Going into that, I was going to say the other upset was San Francisco beating Boston 3-1 on Friday.
Yeah,
that was also an upset.
I mean, I don't think it was an upset in the sense that
it was an upset.
I would have predicted San Francisco to win there because of how they've looked better than
Hold on. San Francisco has 4 Tracer mains. I would expect them. Them to do worse than Boston.
But if you paid attention to their games, they've looked way better over the last few weeks. They've been getting steadily better, and Boston's just been shitting the bed.
Well,
so that's why I expect them. I'm not saying they're better than Boston if Boston figures out the meta. I'm just saying at this point in time, how they were playing versus how Boston's been playing in this stage, I wasn't surprised by that.
And then the last upset I wanted to highlight was I think. And it wasn't an upset to you, but I think it was an upset, was Gladiators beating Philly on Thursday 3-1. That was...
Yeah, I definitely don't think that was an upset. Because, again, Gladiators have looked... Over the course of the league, Philly's looked better, but in this stage, Gladiators have looked better. Because Philly's also been kind of not
Well, yeah, this stage, top 4 is LA, New York, LA again, and then San Francisco. And then the bottom is, well, besides Florida and Shanghai, is Boston, Seoul, and London, with Philadelphia in the middle. Like, that's... You wouldn't expect that after seeing, stage 3.
Really shit the bed, too. I mean, they started their decline earlier than Boston did, for instance, but...
Yeah. No, it's crazy.
Before, it was like they were declining in the sense that they weren't having super close matchups against the top teams, but they were still easily beating the teams under them. And now it's just... they've kind of gone down to the point where who knows who they're going to beat. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's still a safe bet to say that they'll beat Shanghai, but, every other team, who knows? Depends on what Seoul shows up, I guess. Now, see, about the Nixel thing, like I said, I definitely don't think it's... Now, if Nixel continues to lose a bunch of matches, and then they go to the playoffs, and they just bum out, and they fucking suck, then I'll say that it was... I'll say it was I'll do what the casters do in the official stream,
and you'll get bought out, or you'll get bought out rather.
I'll flip it. I'll change my answer, and I'll be like, okay, it was an upset because obviously Nixel just started being shit. But no, they just, like I said, they weren't. I'm not like a delusional expand. Like they lost on purpose. Like no, they just instead of going like 110% to try to win, they were like playing at 90%. They're like, whatever. If we lose, we lose. Because not only did Ark say that fucking, weeks ago that they didn't really care too much, but their coach, we highlighted that article in the last podcast even where he was just like, we're not too concerned about that.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. I mean, you're that far ahead. You're still going to try to win, of course, but, it's just why? If you don't have to go 100%, it's like doing a practice test, or practice exam in school or some shit, right? It's just a practice one. You just you go out there and you put your answers down or whatever. When you get to the real test, then you fucking like make sure you're good to go. But if you get shit wrong on the practice test, who gives a fuck? It's a practice test. Don't matter.
Yeah, and kind of what I was hoping wouldn't happen. I mean, it's not. Let me. Not that I was hoping it wouldn't happen in this way. Okay, I'm tripping over my words. I was hoping that other teams
Tie
throughout the
your damn
stages.
shoes.
Yeah, I was hoping that the other teams throughout the stages would kind of build up to the level of Nixel, and then
Yeah.
in the
Well, me too.
playoffs we would see like kind of a bigger disparity amongst. Oh, no, I'm sorry, not a bigger disparity, a lesser of a disparity between the different teams, and that during playoffs we'd see a lot tighter matches. But right now, what it seems like is happening is that the change of the meta this many times has thrown off. Because I mean, that's the only explanation I have, other than the roster changes. The only other explanation I have, because if you go through the stages, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and go through the standings for each stage, besides New York, everyone's flip-flopping the fuck around. Stage 1, Houston and London. Stage 2, London and Philadelphia. And then Houston was in the middle. Stage 3, London's in the middle. And both LA teams are up, and Boston's up on the top, and then Dallas is on the bottom. Stage 4, Dallas is now in the middle, and then you got the LA teams up top, and then you have Boston on the bottom, and London is sole there. We're talking about dramatic changes in the standings per stage for each of these teams, and we're having metas where the teams, like a team, like for instance the Tracer meta, Boston dominated. As soon as the meta swaps, they just tank like hard. Same thing with Houston Outlaws. Like they, stage 1, they were dominating the Mercy meta. They were probably one of the best ones with the Mercy meta. And then as soon as that gets nerfed, they just go straight back into the ground. And they're and a lot of teams are struggling to pick back up. And I know one of the things we've talked about on this podcast is the highlights of the Overwatch League is the dynamic environment and the dynamic, like, the
This
way
almost
that,
feels like a negative dynamism, though.
that's kind of what I like.
It
I
seems
don't.
like I
It's
don't know if this is
interesting.
what you're getting at, but it seems like Nix. Well, obviously Nixel has stayed rock solid. Like they've cemented themselves for the foreseeable future as the best. But instead of because I also hoped that it would happen now. Hopefully it happens in the future, but it's obviously a lot more fun to watch when the top teams are closer together and there's
Yeah.
not a big disparity. Even being a Nixel fan, it was fun when it was nail biting to see if London was going to beat them again or something. I mean, it's still fun in a different kind of way being a Nixel fan now because it's just like, they're like the best. But it's like you don't have the same kind of edge of your seat matches, and even the teams under them, they don't seem as like every team besides Nixel seems to be kind of off a little bit, with the meta. And so it seems like they've stayed rock solid, but every other team has kind of either stayed the same or gotten worse a little bit. But then at the same time, San Francisco has looked better. Dallas has been looking better. But I wonder, right? Are San Francisco and Dallas better, to use them as examples? Or is it just that the teams that were clearly better than them previously are not as good right now? Because you think about the teams that were really, really solidly good before, or at least better than Dallas and San Francisco. Gladiators was still one of them, even when they were not as good as they are now, right?
Yeah.
For the most part, they were. You had Boston was always above them as well. And then, well, I guess Florida has also looked somewhat better. But again, I don't know that it's actually those teams looking better as much as it is the teams that were previously on top of them just not being as good, right? Because Valiant has still looked good, at least in terms of how the fact that they have the W's,
Yeah.
But again, I think they're higher up. I don't think they'd be as high up if well, I guess it's probably. I mean, it's not really that crazy of an idea. But if Boston were still playing at the level they were playing at the end of last stage, I think the standings would be way different. I don't think Valiant would be number 2.
But I mean, okay. So one of my arguments that I had made. One of the arguments that I had made previously in a previous episode was I do like the fact that the meta changes and then the teams are going to be I'd be in support of the teams having to change on the fly, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now what it's looking like is nobody can handle that except for Nixel. So is it an issue of everybody sucks ass except for Nixel? Or not, and then maybe not, then that's the wrong way to put it. Not everybody sucks ass, but like just nobody is able to figure out the formula at all, and Nixel has it, or is it Nixel is just literally players are just that much better? Because to me that seems, it seems more likely that there's like a missing puzzle piece that for some reason Nixel has. Or is it really that their players are literally just 100 times better? Like they have their tank line is 100 times better, their DPS is 100 times better. Like everything is just way better. And so, and then if that's the case, then where's the rest of the talent? Like that's.
I mean, that would be
so
hard to believe just
know.
because of how individually good we've seen players on every team.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm saying it's
that
hard.
makes more sense that they have.
Hard to believe that.
But I don't know. I think it doesn't always look like it when we watch a match, but I think Brigitte just changed things. I think it just fundamentally changed the way that they were looking at the game. So that's why a lot of teams have just fucking. Because even Nixel, like they've looked ahead, but they've also they got to where they're at by being the most coordinated and having the best teamwork, which is why, at least for now, 90% of the time they're still just running the same meta that was happening last stage. They haven't really changed much because a lot of teams, most of the teams, they don't have to change anything and they're still better. They're still good enough just at their own level to beat them. It didn't work with Valiant this time. So there are teams that can upset that, for instance, or whatever. They could force Nixel to have to play more meta to win, which they didn't do in this series because why reveal the strats? But yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I don't know. I still don't think it's like, oh man, this stage was bad, so it's okay for Blizzard to have Overwatch League be 2 patches behind live servers. I still don't think that's a good argument, but I think it also has to do with the patch because I don't know. It seemed like people were a lot more grumpy when Brigitte first came out than when Hanzo came out. Like to me, it seemed that Hanzo being really strong kind of helped balance things out in a weird sort of way. Because it wasn't just Brigitte changing everything. Then you had Hanzo, so you still had a DPS star that is a different DPS than the main DPS or whatever, but you still kind of had the same way to go about it. Now it's like, I don't know, it's different, I guess. I don't know. It's just, it seems like most of the teams, like we said, are just playing kind of off.
Well,
except for...
Well, okay, so there's several... So if the changing of the meta is messing everybody up, and literally every team and everything, and if it's messing everything up except for Nixel, what is the solution? So the one solution is no meta changes. But God, that would be kind of...
that's not a solution.
No,
that's how you kill a competitive scene or something.
Well, I meant no meta changes for the pros, which...
That still would kill it. It's boring.
Exactly.
People want to watch. Like it's already. I mean, it's pretty funny. One of my favorite things I've seen in Twitch chat over the last week is somebody saying, "Hey guys, can you tell me how to switch the storm shot on Hanzo to be the scatter arrow? I really want to use what the pros use." And people spam that, which is pretty funny. But no, honestly.
No, but what I was gonna say is there's that.
If they haven't figured it out, then there's a big problem with the way most of the teams are utilizing their practice time, I would think. Honestly, because I've seen it in other esports. Big patches change. Some teams adapt faster than others, but as a whole, they still adapt. They still do. It's still a part of that fucking job. It's a part of your job. If they can't adapt, then they need to practice, better. I mean, it's kind of shitty that the only place they can practice outside of scrims is the solo queue ladder, which is a whole fucking mess and has a bunch of problems that should be addressed.
Yeah.
But it's not that much better in League of Legends, for instance. But
I was gonna say.
However, Riot did figure out they have kind of a schedule now where they change things. So generally, like for instance, they changed a shit ton of stuff right now, but it's an off season. They changed a bunch of stuff between the end of spring split and the beginning of summer split. And then in between that time is MSI, but they just play that on like the latest patch that was during spring, basically, or like one patch after. So once that's over with, then they have this off season that's just like a month or two, and then they do a whole bunch of meta changes at once. And then when summer split starts, that's what the teams are playing on, the most current thing. But with Overwatch League being as long as it is, there isn't really a good off season place to do that, except before the World Cup when Overwatch League is done, but it would be very shitty to not see any patch changes at all or balance changes
Oh yeah.
from January
And I'm not
whenever.
saying that's a solution. I'm just saying that's not the solution, but I'm just saying that would be one thing to even out the playing
Mhm.
field. The other thing is obviously the obvious get good, right? But I feel like if all the organizations are struggling on meta changes and on roster
Well, not
changes
all
that
of them are.
hard, well, I mean, but well, some of them
Even
excel.
Dallas has been one of the worst organizations for the history, and they've gotten their shit together for this patch.
That's what I'm saying. But it's so random. It's so varying. Every single team is going up, down, up, down, up, down, except for Nixel. So, but okay. So now the other thing you could do is, and I think maybe this would help, is fixing the solo ladder,
Oh
fixing
yeah.
and well, okay. So my thing, and I think we agreed about this on the last podcast, is sync it up so that the patch cycles you're using the latest patch, even if it's a week out. Use the latest patch in an Overwatch League.
No, I
So,
don't think it should. Well, I don't know about that. It should just be close. Like I think it doesn't necessarily matter. I think
well, we're
like
referring to
if
the new Hanzo. Like, new Hanzo
well
should have been in Overwatch
what I
League.
yeah, it should. But I mean
That
like
was a week
I'm
within.
well, yeah, it was in this instance. I just mean, every little minor patch, every little minor change that comes out, but see, Blizzard isn't doing that. They don't do like quick hot fixes and stuff. They're doing like, at least not yet. They've been doing more bigger one drop things. When you adjust things on a faster rate on that end, you can wait and give competitive until they have a weekend off or something, and then do that, right? Or like, you can do more minor changes like that in the off week between these stages. However, for big changes, something like the Hanzo, right? That should be an Overwatch League. What I mean is, okay, I'm just throwing random numbers out here. Okay, let's say that the patch with Hanzo is patch 3.0, right?
Okay.
Like when he came out with his new abilities. And then the current live patch is 3.1. And the only difference is, Hanzo's damage has been adjusted or something, right? I don't think it's 100% necessary that the pros are playing on patch 3.1 right now. I think that's okay to lag behind a week or two. But the big thing is that without Hanzo being, but the 3.0 with Hanzo's abilities being different, that should definitely be an Overwatch League, because the other things are just minor. Big things should always be in the same span, but little minor
Uh,
changes, because then you'd have to run in the issue where you have to
well,
patch it no matter what. So if it's a
but
Tuesday and they do a hot fix, they have to hot fix, which can break things for
but
Overwatch League.
well, okay, well, yeah. That the whole thing about they do need to streamline it so that when they're hot fixing and adjusting
I think it
numbers,
should be
yeah.
current on all the big changes. The small changes, it doesn't have to be, as long as it's within with 2 weeks or
Well,
so. But
depends.
the
But
big
you
changes
you
should
could
always be there.
you could have a small change though that dramatically changes the meta. I mean,
Well, yeah,
if
but
if
no,
Han,
but
if
like,
Hanzo's like Stormbow was 10 damage off, and that was the difference between two-shotting somebody or four-shotting somebody, or something weird like that. Let's just say for
yeah,
example,
but
let's
but
like
I
if
mean, no
that's the
other
case,
esports are that current in
well,
in their patch
but
cycle,
what I
because you
mean,
do
like,
you do have to give the pros some time to adjust.
but I mean that would be the difference between having an entire, let's say, an entire stage of you must have Hanzo every single time, and he dictates what everybody else is using because you have to run him because he's overpowered.
Oh yeah, but we're not
Versus,
talking a stage time difference. We're talking like 2 weeks.
but I'm
It's
saying
a
I don't see there being a problem with them implementing a small patch, in
well, it's
concurrence
because the
with
coding can
live.
get fucked up. That's why it
With
shouldn't be a problem for the
with
players, but it's a back end problem. A
with
lot
the
of the
exception of the encoding, which they would encounter less problems with the encoding if they streamlined it, made it, and kept working on the back end of their tournament client, which I'm sure they're doing. But I'd like to hear a word on that.
time.
That'd be
I think the minor things, it's okay to be a little bit behind, not much though. Like I said, like max like 2 weeks or so. But I think the big changes should always be like 100% Hanzo with Storm Arrow and stuff. That should be in Overwatch League right now, and it's not. And it probably won't be until after the playoffs. I don't know.
No, well, playoffs.
Are they gonna change it before the playoffs?
I would imagine. I can't imagine them leaving it behind that much.
Well, plus, I mean, that's another thing. I think that's another thing that's interesting. Or I think that's another factor that kind of is playing into what we're seeing with the league right now. Is a lot of the players, it's like I said when we first talked about this, when they're not scrimming, they practice by playing, on the ladder, the competitive ladder. Well, the competitor ladder is really different from the patch that's going on in Overwatch League. So it's possible that maybe they're not practicing as much as they normally would be because they can't get the same, because it's different enough to where it doesn't, if they spend too much time on the ladder, it throws them off in competitive or vice versa. or B, it's just that they're so different that or maybe they're just not maybe some teams won't admit it, but maybe they're not practicing as hard right now
Well,
because they're waiting for it to catch up.
That kind of well,
I don't
okay.
know.
So there's a couple of things. One, we agree that the matchmaking for the standard live client for Overwatch needs to be fixed. They need to fix things to where it's more representative of a high-end play and a little bit less of a grind / RNG generator if you're going to get a team that's going to actually be cohesive or not. As well as the issue of mains.
In Blizzard's in a small defensive Blizzard, that isn't a simple problem to fix.
Well, no, and we've stated that before. But okay, so besides that, it has been documented that there's also issues with teams scrimming. Dallas,
really?
yeah. So Taimu was on Oversight, Thorin's podcast.
Oh wait, can I add one more thing real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I was just gonna say, I think another thing that might have to do with this whole fiasco, if you want to call it that, is so all the other patches in Overwatch League, they didn't really change the way that the meta was being played that much. You kind of rotated like Mercy out for a different. You know what I mean? Like they weren't that big. This is the first patch or meta change of this kind in Overwatch League, I think. So I think it makes a little bit more sense that the first time something changes drastically, the teams aren't going to be as well prepared for it. Like in the future, when something changes, they'll have all the struggles they had with this stage and adapting to it under their belt, so they should be able to adapt quicker in the future. I'm not obviously saying this excuse. I just mean, it's just the first time you make a mistake on anything, it's usually worse than the next times you make a mistake on it, unless you don't learn. But these people are obviously going to learn, so
yeah.
I think that might have something to do with it too. It's the first time that something really changed and had to force teams to play differently.
It's also the first season.
The coaches have to deal with that for the first time.
Oh yeah, this is the
organization.
Across the board, this is a first for everybody. This is the first time there's ever been franchising in an esport. I mean, I know League of Legends hit it around the same time, but you know what I'm saying. Like this is a first.
Technically before, but yeah, basically.
Yeah, it's basically all in the same.
It's the first esports league that started as a franchise league.
Well, yeah, it's franchise and localized, and we have lots. It's definitely. I understand there's going to be issues, but
I got a tiny hat. Look at that.
But it looks cute.
Like a tiny little hat.
Looks cute on you.
I look like a monkey.
But anyways, okay. So going back to and let's see if I can pull up the article to get. So
Audio listeners will be very confused.
I don't want to. Sorry guys. We do some stuff on video. I believe it was Taimu anyways on the Oversight Thorns podcast, and he was talking about how they were the only team that would scrim Shanghai Dragons, Dallas Fuel for a while, and let's just say that was true. Let's say that wasn't true, and really they weren't the only team, but they scrimmed with Shanghai Dragons 80% of the time. You're talking about the two lower end teams being forced to scrim with each other because no one else will scrim with them.
Yeah, but I mean,
that's up. Obviously, that's you could argue whether or not the organization should be involved in scrim schedules and whatnot. But that leaves you to say, hey, so you're practicing. The two bottom teams are practicing against each other. Granted, they're going to improve. Iron sharpens iron, but when you're talking about that quality and that level of practice time, whereas if you're Nixel, let's say you get to practice where your pick and you're picking the strongest opponents and you're hitting that, we're talking about a difference of better practice. And then and Dallas also, and I think Shanghai also has to scrim contenders teams because it's what I'm saying. There's something that goes into that.
Anything wrong with that, because I think part of the pedigree, it comes with part of the one of the things that comes with this part of the pedigree of being the better teams is you get to pick and choose and be really picky about who you scrim with, because you got to think about it. They only have a certain amount of time each day to fit in scrims, right? Do you really want to tell the top team that they have to basically waste half of their scrim time scrimming teams that they're not gonna get anything out of scrimming?
No, and that's what I'm saying. Like,
it's unfortunate for the lower teams, but they kind of did it to themselves by being down there.
Well,
and I do know it's harder in Overwatch, I think, but there has been cases in League of Legends, for instance, where the bottom teams have only scrimmed like the bottom teams, and as a result, they've been able to beat the top teams in matches because they they weren't prepared for the little stuff they were preparing secret strats against each other. Kind of the same thing with like in-house kind of stuff.
Right.
Like it happened in League, there was a team that was getting ignored by a lot of the teams, and so they just developed their own style,
Oh yeah, you
and it
told me
was able
about
to
that.
win.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Echo Fox actually was doing that at one point, Rick Fox's organization. But in any case, it's definitely unfortunate. I feel for those teams, but I don't feel like it's right to dictate, that every team has to scrim every other team, because then they have scrim blocks where it's basically, I mean, like Nixel, it's not like it's a complete huge waste of time if they have to scrim Shanghai, but they're really not going to get much out of that. So it's going to be they could be scrimming a better team, maybe getting better practice, you know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the onus is kind of on those lower teams to bring it up to a level that the other teams want to scrim them.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know. It's it's just like the matchmaking. It's a complicated issue, at least in my head. But I don't. I guess the end result is I'm just trying to see what's going to bring all the other teams to Nixel's level, right? Because that's what the end game is. We want to see people performing at their peak, and I feel like there is a middleman issue that has been yet unnamed, because the reason why is because on a player to player basis, these guys really are on an even playing field. Yeah, everyone's like, Sabiel will be best tracer, but you stack him 1v1, no teams included, versus Striker, Sinatra or anything. They're all kind of like right there in the same ballpark. Same thing with your top Genjis, your top tank lines, your healers. They're all kind of in their own right at the same skill levels for the most part. There's definitely people that are like way better, and people that are a little bit, but they're in that same ballpark for the most part. So what's the missing middle ground to where teams are flip-flopping on how good they do really fast on a dime on the change of a meta versus the stability and excel
I think what Wizard
of Excelsior.
What Wizard said actually can shed some light on that, right? Because he mentioned how he thinks a lot of teams are not as successful right now because what they're doing is they're copying Nixel, right? But again, like we said, they're doing what they think Nixel is doing, but they don't understand the why yet. So they don't have the full scope of things, right? But that's kind of part of the learning process. It's like when you're a kid, or primates, or like it's mammals, like primates and stuff, especially. Like we start to learn when we're really young by imitating, right? We like see that a parent does something and stuff. We don't necessarily understand why they did that, but we imitate the motion, and then eventually we catch on to the why, and then we can do it ourselves and we learn. So I think I'm not trying to make Nixel sound so godly or anything. I think they're just kind of the quickest kid in the room, and they understood the content, like they understood the lesson faster. So it's the other kids have to try harder to learn, but I think they'll get there. Like I think they will, unless the lessons keep changing so fast that nobody can catch up. But with the way patch cycles have been, I doubt that's going to be the case. I just think they're good enough to where they've put themselves in this spot, but the other teams will start to catch up because they're imitating Nixel now without understanding the why. But as soon as they start getting the why, they're going to have the motions down from an imitation. So once it kind of clicks, then the other teams will kind of be like, oh, whatever. Kind of like how it clicked, like Boston, how they were just kind of trying this brute force style for a while that wasn't working, and then they started like imitating what other teams are doing, and then it clicked, and they started adopting strategies around it after they really figured it out, and then they started being meteoric and just getting really, 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 really fucking good to the point where they were, looking like they were actually going to contest Nixel pretty well in the finals, which they didn't, but it looked like they were. I think it's kind of just a symptom of the fact that the other teams aren't. They're more focused on trying to figure out how Nixel is so good instead of just trying to focus on how they can be better on their own.
Yeah, I mean,
which you can't blame them for. I mean, yeah, you look at the best and imitate them, but it's sometimes you got to innovate and do your own thing, because it's a lot of times that's how the best get to be the best. They innovate. They come up with their own solutions. So if you're just copying them, you're always going to be a step behind.
Yeah, my thing still is that I feel like over the course of, let's see, how many months has it been now?
It started
6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So over the course of like 5-6 months, I would think we would have seen some ironing out of some of these issues, and we're just seeing even more wacky results from these teams. So I feel like there's still something a
I just think it's
piece.
because it's still really young. Like
Uh,
Overwatch is really set up, but it's still really young. A lot of these coaches weren't esports coaches for a lot of other things. Some of them maybe
Yeah.
weren't even really coaches for other places, for things outside of it. Like League, for instance, a lot of the coaches for teams now have previous sports experience, even like conventional sports experience. Some of them don't, but they've been coaching esports since, you know, for years and years now.
Yeah,
So I think
yeah.
it's just, a lot of these people. I'm not saying they're bad at their job, but they're just newer to it. They just don't have as much experience as a lot of the others. So I mean, League
Right.
was kind of like this. So a lot of time for it used to be in other esports too. There was a much bigger gap between the bottom teams and the top teams. Now, like for instance, Counter Strike League. Sometimes one little thing happens, and the teams were all so close that then it kind of like we were seeing. And I think we've just regressed a bit, but I think it's part of the whole natural process. I think it'll work itself out.
Really? Huh.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't
I
think
mean,
it's going to be that one team is way better than everybody forever.
yeah, obviously, I agree with that, but I do think that, I mean, yeah, it might work itself out. I just think that management and stuff, and their practice time, regiment, and kind of
Well, that's
dealing with
another
the
thing.
players
I mean, well, think about it, right?
needs to be ironed out more for sure.
How do you can't pick weeds if you don't know until they grow, right? You don't see them. Maybe some of the people who are in the management for these teams or whatever, maybe they're just not, maybe they aren't good enough, and then that
Yeah.
will come. That fruit that flower is starting to bloom now, and they'll be like, okay, we need to snip this bud off and snip that one off so we can grow a better plant. Because I mean, that's how it happens. You don't really usually you don't know or realize there's issues until stuff kind of shit hits the fan. So, you know, or roster changes. Like all these things that can happen. It's one of those things that always makes off seasons exciting for both sports and esports when there is some sort of an off season, just to see which organizations are like, okay, this is an issue, and they change it up and stuff. And I'm not saying the teams have to make roster changes to get
Well,
better or whatever. I just think that clearly something isn't working for most of the teams. But I do think that they will figure out what it is that's not
well,
working.
will,
They'll get that thorn out of their side, and then they'll start moving forward again.
on the same token of their downfall is also the token of success, which is the fact that they do have times where they soar up and can do really good, like Boston during Stage 3, or like Valiant, or any of these teams at Spike. So I mean, there's clearly things going right, and clearly things going wrong, and it's just a little bit volatile right now. But I mean, yeah, I think in terms like that, I mean, you have a point. It'll probably settle itself out at some point.
Even look at like solo queue, right? Any game out there that's competitive. How many times have you won like a bunch of games in a row and be like, holy fuck, like I'm actually so good at this game, and then you just lose one, and you're like, whatever, I just won 5. One's no big deal, and then you lose another. You're like, oh shit, okay, whatever. And you lose another, and you're like, fuck, what the hell? I thought I was good. Now I'm a shit. But
you're
then
saying
you learn,
all of
you're like,
OWL is tilting?
yeah, kind of. No, I'm not saying they're tilting. I'm just saying.
No, but yeah, I know.
You start losing, and then you like fuck, and it kind of affects you. But then eventually, you usually right the ship and figure out, okay, what the fuck is going on? Because you adjust. I'm just saying that it's kind of it's unfortunate, especially for you, instance, as a big fan of Boston. How bad they've looked, but it's not like, oh man, they were really good. Now there's gonna be shit forever, and I know you know that.
No.
They'll figure out what's the fucking problem, because at the end of the day, these organizations are still run and owned by people who want to win. Even if it's just them having a better like being able to buy players that are better more effectively than other people. If that's their way to win, they still want to win. They're in this because they're competitive. Yeah, they want to make a profit. That's the goal of any business, but except non-profit businesses, supposedly anyway. But
Yeah.
they still want to win, and the players want to win. You don't get to that level without being super competitive. Same thing with the coaches. You don't get to, and if you don't have what it's to, it becomes a problem, and then it's realized, and then it's solved. Which is what I'm saying. I keep saying that shit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do know, but I don't. But I also don't know.
I think it'll all work.
Sorry for our people watching this on YouTube. I am like, I just got a wave of tiredness. I had a really long day today at work, so I just boof. Got hit with the tired bug, man. It's just. Whew,
no, it's fine. I mean, we can call it now.
Yeah, I mean, I work outside in the sun.
There wasn't really much news. unless I missed everything.
No,
but
there
like
really
I said,
wasn't.
I looked and there
The
hasn't
only
been much.
the only
It's been-
the only kind of highlight of the news is that Effect seems like he's like in a decent state of mind now, and and he'll come back whenever needed. So that's
but
I
even
mean
now,
that's
we
good.
talked about it on the last one.
No, but we didn't talk about Effect coming back on the last one.
Yeah,
Did
we did.
Oh, we did.
Yeah.
You sure?
We
Oh
touched
yeah.
on it.
No, we did. Good lord.
Yeah.
Man, wow. Gee, I don't even know what we're talking about. Good lord.
Gay and lesbian are censored in Twitch chat, even though one of the players is gay, and the emotes gay pride and lesbian pride are allowed.
Well,
in chat.
okay.
Their
That's
chat moderation is very questionable.
that sounds ridiculous. But if they didn't have the word gay, not allowed in the chat, you know that would be spam to shit on the stream.
Oh, yeah.
Like just you. I
That
mean,
one's not bad.
yeah, that one.
But-
you know
But
that.
there is definitely, pretty easy to say that some of the
I do think
things
I
they
do.
choose to filter are a bit strange.
Yeah, I mean, we said that last podcast. I think Blizzard's a
Kinda,
little
yeah.
heavy-handed with that, but at the same time, it's like, is it really is it that big a deal? I don't think so.
Oh no, I don't care about that. It's not like I'm going in the chat saying gay, 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 lesbian, lesbian, lesbian. It doesn't fucking matter to me. It's just kind of like something
Yeah.
to snicker at. Like, haha, that's kind of funny.
Yeah, exactly.
Kinda. If you don't think
Kinda.
about it.
Oh man, well, it's definitely not. Besides the few upsets that happen, like the Dallas Fuel Spitfire game, stuff like that. Besides that, not too surprising of a week. Honestly, the standings have not really been impacted league wise. We're still gonna. I mean, we're kind of winding down to a close here, and I think Houston's actually out of the running now. Is that correct? Because I think it's right now tied
It might
between.
be.
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. Right now it's just between Philadelphia and LA to get in.
With the Gladiators, you mean, right?
Oh, Gladiators. Right now,
I'm pretty
league
sure they're in.
because right now the standings league wide are number 1 New York, number 2 Valiant, number 3 Spitfire, 4 Boston, 5 Seoul Dynasty, 6 Gladiators, and 7 Philadelphia Fusion. Philadelphia Fusion, Seoul Dynasty, and Gladiators are all at 21 wins and 15 losses. And the map differential for Fusion is 11, whereas for Gladiators and Seoul Dynasty it's 16. So I think Fusion would have to work pretty hard to get in, and then Houston is at 20 and 16 with an 18 map differential. Houston might still be able to make it, possibly. I don't know. For sure, San Francisco, Dallas, Florida, and Shanghai are not going to be in the running. But we still have let's see here. So we still have all of week 4 and week 5 left to kind of round things out. So we'll see kind of how that plays out. I think the bottom. Let me go this. Basically anyone below Gladiators. Or no, not Gladiators. Anyone below New York is pretty much could possibly be dropped out. Maybe not Valiant or Spitfire. I'm not sure. Because actually, I'm sorry. Spitfire would be a shoo-in unless they lost every single match, I think, because they're at a plus 33 map differential. So it's a fight. It's a fight. Though.
Wins matter more. The map differential doesn't come into play unless it's a tie on wins and
Well,
losses.
they would have to lose all the matches.
I'm sure
because-
London's going to be in anyway.
And
but-
then like Philly would have to win all of them or something. I don't know.
yeah.
It's definitely gonna be interesting. The last 2 weeks of the regular season, we'll be watching closely. We'll be seeing how these these last few weeks, and especially the last week, is going to be really intense. It's going to be the fight to get into the playoffs for these top teams. So I'm excited to see those matches, and then of course I'm super excited for playoffs. That's gonna be hype. Definitely gonna be a lot more people involved. It's gonna be big. It's gonna be beautiful. It's gonna be bold.
Bold and beautiful.
Bold and beautiful. But yeah, we'll go ahead and cut the podcast off early today. Sorry guys, didn't even hit an hour, but not a whole lot happened. Not that I can remember anyways. So what?
When did we start?
I don't remember. Long time ago. Galaxy far, far away.
I think we might have done like an hour.
Yeah, but it's a short stream today, guys. But don't worry, we'll be back next week. Probably a little bit longer next week. I'm sure we're gonna have a lot more to talk about with stuff coming. It being the last week too, coming into.
Well, hopefully we do
playoffs.
anyway.
Yeah, hopefully.
Could always invent things to talk about.
Yeah, maybe I can get Fish on. Also, I am gonna be trying to get a guest on here pretty soon. As soon as I possibly can, I'm gonna try and get somebody here on the podcast to break up the monotony of PAX and Vox. Even though I think we are very cool and we have a good dynamic, we're missing that third key here.
Third wheel.
The
most important part of any healthy
We're
relationship.
missing the third wheel.
The third wheel.
But anyway, so that's going to do it for us. Thank you guys for listening and or watching. You can find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. Also here on Twitch, obviously. We're also on Twitter and Facebook. That's where our social media is at. So hit us up if you have any likes, comments, concerns, gripes, bitches. Do you have a D20?
Or no, it's just a D6. I actually, hit us up if you just want to. If you got like any money that you just want to give away too, that'd be cool. I'd take it. If you don't want it, it's like, man, I got all this money. I don't know what to do with it. Yeah, give it to me.
Just
I
come
use
stop
it.
by. Talk to us. We'll be sure to help you out. Yeah. But anyways, all right.
Some sort of a deal.
Hell yeah, dude. That's it for us. We will see you guys next week with more Overwatch League and shenanigans. Bye-bye.
Ow.